Alhamdulillah wahda, wassalatu wassalamu ala man la nabiyya ba'da, amma ba'd. We started discussing the issue of qiyas or analogy. And we mentioned that from Quran and Sunnah, you as a mujtahid imam would derive certain rules if there were certain conditions found. So this is called analogy, taking the ruling of one particular issue and applying it to some new issue that has come up. So there are components of qiyas, which is number one, the asl. There has to be the original case where you would find a standard ruling, and then you apply that to a new situation which has similar situation, or you can say some components are common, the details are similar, and the same rule could be applied to the new situation. So the original case which you base everything on is called asl or maqis alay, and the new case is called fara'. Asl means root, fara' means branch. So a new branch came up and you apply the same rule which you already found in one of the roots. So there's original case, then there's a new case, and you know the effective illah, the cause, which is the reason for that rule, and then you apply that rule to this new situation. Okay, so what is asl? Asl or maqis alay, this is the original case on which a ruling is given, which you find in Quran or in Sunnah or in ijma, by ijma of ummah. And then you just apply that same rule to the new situation. So majority of ummah agree that we can take the rule, original case or asl or maqis alay, the one you're doing qiyas on, is from Quran or Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or ijma as well, ijma consensus. Though there are certain people who do not consider, certain groups who do not consider ijma to be one of the original cases that you can apply and then take some rules from. So Imam Malik, for example, some of the Malikis do not allow that. Then fara', which is the new case, where you're trying to find out the ruling. So there has to be certain conditions met. The new case must not be covered by the text or ijma. If you already got some ruling about the new situation, about that situation that you've come up with in the Quran or in Sunnah or by the consensus of our ulama, then you're done. Then you do not need to come with analogy and try to find out the rule by using your qiyas, because you already got a ruling about it anyway. So that is why you find people not trying to delve into qiyas when there is a hadith or Quranic ayah to prove the point already. Although some Hanafis and Maliki would resort to this qiyas even with some speculative rulings, and that's a rarity, but majority or most of the time, they would not need to go for qiyas when there is already a rule. Now, the cause, the illah, whatever the illah or the reason is, or the effective cause is, that must be applicable to the new case, as it was applicable to the original case. So there should be no discrepancy in that situation. For example, zihar is when a man says to his wife that your back is like that of my mother, me anti kavahri ummi, something like that. So Arab used to say it, whereby they mean that I am not going to have any consummation or any intimate relationship with you. Your back is to me like my mother. So if I were to come close to you, as if this is haram for me as my mother's haram for me. And it is called dhihar. Dhihar because dhihar means back. So they give the resemblance to of their wives' intimate relationship to their mother, saying that I'm not going to come close to you. Mean that in a way this is a type of, say, divorce. But it's not a type of divorce actually, but it's a different thing. It's called zihar. Now, if someone has done that, then they have a kafara to pay, expiation, say 60 fasts. So if they could do that, or they have another, if they can't afford to free a slave, so they have to do one or the other. But anyway, so there is a way of expiation. So you said that, so you free a slave, or you just fast for 60 days consecutively, then you can go back to your wife. Otherwise, your wife becomes haram for you. So it is called zihar. Now, this kafara is only applicable to Muslims. Only Muslims can do that. If a non-Muslim does the zihar and they want to come to a mufti or Islam in the Islamic State, they would not have a way back through expiation. Why? Because expiation or kafara of fasting or freeing a slave is an act of ibadah, and that act of ibadah is only accepted from a Muslim. A non-Muslim or the zimmi, the taxpayer in a Muslim land, a non-Muslim, they cannot resort to this kafara because it cannot be accepted from them. Why? Because iman or faith is a prerequisite for the validity of expiation, be it through fasting or through freeing the slave in this case. Okay, so the fara. So you can't apply this saying, oh, since the Muslim do it, I can apply it to non-Muslims as well. You can't, because there's a difference between the two situations. Another condition. This application of qiyas to the new situation should not change the law. The law should stay the way it is. For example, laughter in prayer, according to Hanafi school, if you laugh out loud while you're praying, then your wudu is broken and your prayer is broken, according to Hanafi school. And they base it on the hadith of qahqaha, hadith of laughter. Hadith of qahqaha or hadith of laughter. Laughter was once Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was leading people in prayer, and it rained just before that. So there were small puddles inside the masjid. So Sahabi came to join the prayer. He didn't see that puddle and slipped. And it is natural for people to sometimes feel like laughing when someone a little bit older slipped. For children, you expect them to slip and then you feel, sympathy for them. But for adults, if they just have a mild slip, people tend to laugh, and that's bad. But anyway, the Sahaba, some of the Sahaba, few of them, they just laughed out loud while they were in the prayer with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So after the prayer finished, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked who were the people who laughed during the prayer, and those people stood up and said, okay, you go and make wudu and pray again. He made them do both of those, saying that your wudu and your prayer is broken while you laugh out loud in the prayer. So based on that, other Imams say this was specific to them, but Imam Abu Hanifa and Hanafi schools say, no, it was something which is based on hadith, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned it, and we have to take it on face value. So anyone who laugh out loud outside the prayer, their prayer or their wudu, is not broken. Inside the prayer, it will break their wudu and their prayer. Now, prayer, everyone agrees if you laugh loudly inside the prayer, your prayer is gone. That's according to all imams, but majority imam. But it shouldn't break your wudu. Why? Because there's no najasa, no filth came out or exited your body. So normally shouldn't. But this is not a matter of qiyas. So, but this is something which has come in a hadith. There's specific ruling. Now, can you apply the same rule to another situation? For example, laughter in the prayer for someone who slipped is a lesser problem than, for example, some other issues, some other bigger problem. For example, someone became non-Muslim inside the prayer and then became Muslim again. Now, coming out of Islam and then realizing and then coming back to Islam is only a matter between him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even if someone told you, you can't just judge based on this because this is internal matter. He didn't disclose it to you or to anyone. That would not, the hukum would not be that the prayer is gone. We can't make judgment on that. So one may say, oh, laughter is lesser of the problems compared to, for example, even slandering. So if someone slandered someone else, would that break their wudu? Well, slandering is a bigger problem. Laughter in prayer is lesser problem. The bigger problem does not break your wudu when you're emitting some bad words, yet your laughter, which is innocent, and I mean innocent in the sense that there's no filth coming out when you're laughing, then it shouldn't break your wudu. But it is not going to be applied here. Why? Because then you're altering the law of the text. Text is very specific about laughter in the prayer. You can't extend it to something else. Okay, so that is another condition. Thirdly, it is not applicable to linguistic matters. You can't come up with some words and say that, you know what, linguistically it means this. So we just apply the same linguistic ideas to something else? Well, no, because this is not the premise for usul al-fiqh. This is the linguistic is linguistic. The words are words. You don't apply Sharia to the words. It is what people say. It is how people discuss matters. Now, farah. And then we have illah. Illah is the actual reason, the effective cause, which is attributed in the asal and also found in the new case, in both. Then you can apply the qiyas. You can extend the ruling. This is the most important component. So you have to identify, this is the mujtahid imam's most important responsibility, to identify the illah. And that must be a constant attribute, which should be there in all the situations, not, going to be affected or changed by the persons, for example, time or place or circumstances. It should be a constant attribute. So it's not that, oh, it is only in Arabs or non-Arabs or youth or men or women. It has to be general. It has to be a permanent attribute. Malikis and Hanbalis would actually say that it might not be constant, but it has to be there, and there has to be a reasonable relationship, not absolute constant, but maybe majority of the time and in most people. And the reason for that is because some of the ulama would not distinguish between the objective and the effective cause. Whereas the other scholars would make a big distinction between the two, and there is. Now, what is hikmah and what is illah? So the example is this, signpost or the signal, traffic signal. You are standing at the lights. The signal is red, so that is the illah for stopping there. Now, 3 o'clock in the morning, on the street, there's no one. You could look around and there's no car coming from any direction. So should you, looking at the red signal, stop or carry on? Well, the illah or the reason for stopping is the red signal, which is found. So you must stop. Although the hikmah or the wisdom or the objective is to minimize the accidents. And if there's no car coming from any direction, there's impossible situation where you would not have any accident. So it's impossible to have any accident. The hikmah, the objective, is to prevent accident, which you are doing. So even if you went through that red signal, it's not a problem. So hikmah or the objective would still be achieved. Yet the illah, which is the cause, effective cause, has been tarnished. You have abused that. You have just caused trouble there. That is why you would get a ticket, or if there was camera there, or if there was police there. Why? Because you have broken the rule and you've broken the illah. So you shouldn't be doing it. Now, those who do not distinguish between the two, they would say it's one and the same thing, so don't worry. But as I said, no, Hanafis are very strict on this, and they say illah is this thing as opposed to the. For example, another example here, the permission granted to travelers to break their fast while traveling is why that is. What is the illah? What is the reason behind it? The hardship. Now, if hardship is the reason, which is actually a wisdom behind it, which is actually the objective behind it, but to avoid the hardship. Now, if we say that if there was no hardship, then you can't cut short your prayer, or you can't then break your fast, then there's a problem. Because this hardship is actually a hikmah. The illah is travel, that's it. Whenever you're traveling, and the definition of travel is clear, which is 3 days journey on a camel, with breaks as they normally do, to camp at night, for example, to rest during the day for a short while. But that is travel. So 3 days worth of travel, which is roughly about 48 miles. So 48 miles journey is the reason for allowance of shortening the prayer or breaking the fast if you were fasting, even the Ramadan fast. But the wisdom behind it, or the objective or hikmah behind it, is to avoid or to minimize the hardship from the individual traveling. Okay, so if you are in the best of the car or by plane going somewhere, then you will be very comfortable. 1 hour car journey or 20 minutes plane journey, obviously just chalk and cheese, and you might not have any trouble whatsoever. It could be a very smooth journey. But regardless, the concession is given, because hardship is only a wisdom or hikmah behind it. The actual cause is travel per se. This hardship is also quite dependent on the individual. For frail, elderly, sick, unwell, bedbound, with respiratory illnesses, other problems, even 20 minutes is a long enough journey. So the hardship is quite a varied condition that people would find themselves in. You cannot make a clear analogy on if you were just to make hardship, what is hardship and what is not? Or who would consider it? So it's something that you cannot arrive at without much, stress. So the concession is actually attached to the traveling itself, which is the illah, regardless of the degree of hardship that may cause. Okay, next condition for illah is it must be evident, not hidden. Or your goodwill, your consent, your intention. You don't know whether you could say whatever you want to say, but it should be very, very clear. The illah, the cause that you're trying to identify in the asl must be clear so that you can apply that to the new situation. And also that proper attribute has to be there. There has to be a relationship to the law of the text. Okay. It must serve to achieve the objective of the lawgiver. For example, murderer, that person must be retaliated for. Any murder should be retaliated for. And it is not because the perpetrator is rich, poor, black or white, but it is because it's a actively done act of killing, deliberately done. That's on its own. That is okay, but there must be a relationship. So you can't just say it is based on this or that. Wine is prohibited, not because it has bad taste or good taste. It's expensive or cheap, or its color or whatever. No, it's because it is intoxicant. Now you look at this situation of alcohol. So you identify that alcohol is haram. The hukum of alcohol is that it is prohibited. And then you look for illah. What is the reason of it being haram? It's because it is intoxicant. It intoxicates, it clouds the conscience. For that reason, it is haram. Because then you don't know what you're saying, what you're doing. So then you've got new situation and you find this ecstasy, for example, or marijuana, or something new, which heroin. And anything that wasn't available, in early days. Cocaine. So then you look at cocaine or marijuana and you found out that it intoxicates as well, similar to alcohol. And the hukum there is haram. So we should apply that here as well. So this new situation can take the same ruling because they both have the same illah. And this is completely right analogy. And based on that, all the intoxicants would be haram. The illah must be transient. It is transitive. It could go on to someone else. It's mutaaddi, transferable. If it's confined to the original case only, then it can't go. Okay. Now, likewise, the illah must not be an attribute which runs counter to or seeks to alter the law of the text. That illah you've identified shouldn't be causing the change in the law. And finally, the hukum. The fourth rukun is hukum. The first one was asl, the original case. Second, fara. Now you've got a new case. Then you're looking at the third one, illah, in between. The illah should be same in both. And then the ruling would be same, the hukum. the rule that governs the original case. That could be extended to the new situation. It must be practical Shari'i ruling. Because practically, qiyas is only operative in the practical situations. It deals with fiqh. It is not from a supernatural thing or a spiritual thing, something in your mind, or it has to be a practical situation. The hukum must be valid. It can't be abrogated one. The rule has already been given that it is abrogated. For example, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, I used to prohibit you from going to a graveyard, now you can visit them. So that original rule is being abrogated. So you can't apply that rule and then put it onto the new situation. That must be currently valid hukum from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the validity of hukum, which is sought to be extended by analogy, must not be the subject of disagreement and controversy. It must be clear. And it should be rational, full of sense. It should make you appreciate it intellectually. Okay, number of rakat in prayer. Now, how would you find out what is the illah behind it? We don't know. We can't. The hukum is just given. It is not arrived at through reasoning. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's given command. What is the nisab of zakah? Why 2.5%? There's no reason behind it. You cannot apply this to something else. Since nisab is 2.5%, let's just make extra charity that we should be doing. Ideally, let's make it 2.5. No, you can't apply that rule here because this is not qiyasi. The matter is beyond intellectual capacity comprehension. Likewise, the hukum must not be very specific to a specific situation in a very specific case. For example, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he took Sayyidina Khuzaymah al-Ansari, Khuzaymah bin Thabit al-Ansari, and he said, your testimony is equal to two people. The incident was when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had a deal, a contract with the trader. The trader then backed off and he said, you know what, I haven't done any contract with you. And in the masjid, the Sahaba were present, and obviously no one was there with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam when that incident took place. So the man just said that, no, I'm not going to sell it to you because there was no deal. And give me the witness if you have any. So everyone was quiet. Khuzaymah bin Thabit al-Ansari, he stood up and said, Ya Rasulullah, I testify that you had the deal with him. Oh man, you had the deal with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he had no choice but to say, oh, okay, you've got a witness. Then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, oh Khuzaymah, you were not there. How could you say that? Not right in front of him. He said, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we know that